Hey guys, the new Abattoire of Zir event will go live tomorrow, and I wanted to provide you with this last minute rogue build which is very budget friendly, so it doesn't require any Uber unique at all. So if you were not lucky enough to find one of these best items in the game like the Harlequin Crest Shaco or Doombringer, which are very powerful for the rogue class especially, but you still want to play a powerful build which is capable of dealing with the new Abattoire of Zir content, then this video should be very interesting for you. So the last days I was testing out different rogue builds, and I came to the conclusion that this build that you can see here is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful build for the rogue class right now. And like I mentioned, it doesn't require any Uber unique items at all to work. So to prove this, you can see here I'm running a tier 100 dungeon, and I have 3 other players waiting at the entrance of this dungeon. So the HP of the monsters are basically 3 times multiplied. So this is the best way to simulate the Abattoire of Zir, since monsters will have more HP there. And right now you see I randomly got attacked by these 2 Bloodseekers. And maybe you're already familiar that in the new Abattoire of Zir event there will be no boss fight at the end of the dungeon, but we will encounter 3 Bloodseekers. So this is a very nice benchmark here to also test my build, and as you can see I don't have problems at all clearing these Bloodseekers here in a tier 100 dungeon with 3 other players. So this is a pretty good sign that this build is capable of handling the first tiers of Abattoire of Zir at least. So yeah, let's talk about this build a bit. Maybe some of you are familiar with my Rogue build. So in the last 2 weeks I made a guide video for my so-called Rogue, where I also play a penetrating shot Rapidfire Rogue combination and also utilize the victimize passive for big AoE damage. So that's why I called it the Rogue. And here we also have a big amount of AoE damage, but I went for a different direction here. So instead of dealing direct damage with penetrating shot and victimize, my damage mostly comes from the Xfal ring. So since we are playing with the bugged T-Bolt's Will Pants together with Condemnation, there's this bug, so we have up to 22 combo points, and this way my lucky hit, my penetrating shot reaches lucky hit chance numbers about 900%. So this means basically every lucky hit mechanic that I have on my gear will get procced, and also in the skills. So we are also playing with Poison Imbuement and Bursting Venoms aspect, and since I have such a high amount of lucky hit chance, every time I will shoot a Poison Imbued penetrating shot arrow, I will proc instantly this Bursting Venom toxic pools on the ground, and this toxic poison pools will frequently trigger my Xfal ring explosions. And these Xfal ring explosions are very huge, so this damage goes up to 18 million, and I will show you later in the training dummy room how this exactly works. So yeah, we are dealing a lot of damage with this poison explosions from Xfal ring. We are very tanky, so here I'm playing the tanky version. I'm reaching up to 21k armor, so it's clearly an overkill. You just don't need that much armor, but this is kind of the most tanky version that I could think of. And then I want to show you a second run. So like I mentioned, this was the tanky version, and in this run here I switched my helmet to a Godslayer crown. Godslayer crown is a unique item, so it's not a Uber unique or something, it's just a regular unique item you can farm from Duriel. And here we are basically dealing a much more damage, so we deal 60% multiplicative more damage with Godslayer crown, and we also pull together nearby enemies when we damage an elite pack. So this works because we constantly freeze all of our enemies. So maybe you realized I'm instantly freezing everything. This is also a very nice feature of this build. And yeah, even this DPS version is also quite tanky. So because of the freezing and because of my tankiness overall, it's still no problem, but I'm dealing much more damage. So we just need to figure out which version is better in the Abattoire of Zir, if we want to go a bit more tanky or with a bit more DPS. So I have provided these two versions. And speaking about tankiness, I also want to mention one major update I did to this kind of build. So I actually kind of went back and put on the Malignant Ring back on the menu. So every class has one of these Malignant Rings from Season 1. And the Malignant Ring from Rogue says that after using a subterfuge skill, for example Smoke Grenade, we are laying down this poison, this taunt trap, decoy trap, and this trap will taunt enemies for 3 seconds. So what this actually means is that we become immortal for 3 seconds. And this is a very important survivability tool in my opinion, if we run this budget version without Doombringer. So if we would have a Doombringer, maybe we would be tanky enough, so we just don't need any further survivability tool. But in this budget version without Doombringer, I found out that this taunt mechanic from this ring is very helpful to survive some situations. So in Abattoire of Zir, you just cannot afford to die, so if you die one time, then the run is over. And it could happen that if you not play with, like if you would play without this ring, that from time to time something stupid will kill you. So at least I personally really like this ring. It just makes my life much more easy, and yeah, I just use it in difficult situations. So just before I engage a big elite pack, for example. So yeah, this is the build. It's very important to spam our Shadow Step every combat. So we usually engage every combat with a Shadow Step. This is important because we want our passive to proc, so we want to benefit from our Close Quarters Combat passive, which will give us a huge damage bonus. So that's why we need to cast our Shadow Step very frequently, so basically every combat, because this is our only cutthroat skill. So yeah, this is the build. Here you see a boss fight. So like I mentioned before, in the Abattoire of Zir event there will be no boss fight, but instead we will fight 3 Bloodseekers, like you saw in the first run of this video. But nonetheless, you can see how quickly I'm able to kill this boss here with the rapid fire. So rapid fire is obviously our damage source for single target damage. Yeah, and it also works just very well. So this was the run, and now I want to show you how exactly this Xfal ring damage, poison damage, is working. So if you see, if I just attack with my penetrating shot, you see the damage is not very big. So I'm dealing something like 20k to maybe 700k, but it's various damage numbers, and it's not very high damage numbers. So you can already tell that here the most of the damage comes not from my penetrating shot. So I will show you how much damage my Xfal ring is able to do. So we first need to load up our combo points, and then the basic skill rotation would be that I will activate my poison imbuement. I will shadow step to the first enemy I see, and maybe drop a smoke grenade, and then everything will explode. And you just saw 17 million, for example, so this was one single poison explosion. And you can imagine, if I play especially with Godslayer Crown, that this damage can stack up quite quickly, because the enemies are pulled together in a very small area and will proc multiple poison explosions at once. So yeah, like you can see, this damage is very huge. and can reach very high numbers. So, like I mentioned, let's now talk about the gear. I have two different versions. So here the tank version would be with a regular legendary helmet. So here I just would use aspect of might on it for additional 20% damage reduction and total armor effects. And then you can see even without disobedience I'm reaching already 13.2k armor, and with disobedience of course even more. So this is how I reached my 21k armor this version here. And if we don't need that much of a tankiness, then I would switch to Godslayer Crown like I mentioned, and then we have a little bit less armor but deal much more damage. And you can see this 60% can go pretty crazy. So here I also did like 10 million, for example. Okay, so this is about the helmet. Then on the chest we either want to play with the Ambrose aspect or with Disobedience. This is dependent on which version you prefer. So with Godslayer Crown I can recommend you to play Disobedience on the amulet. But if you switch to this tanky version with the helmet, then I would switch Disobedience on the chest and put Ambrose on the amulet. Then we play with Frostburn, so very important for this build as well. Since we scale our damage also by freezing enemies, we have huge damage multipliers with or like after freezing enemies. So Frostburn is a very nice addition for this build. T-Bolt's Will and Condemnation. Every rogue build right now runs this combination, so this allows us to get up to 22 combo points and just massively increase our damage and lucky chance. So here you can see my lucky chance is about 900%. Then this was also something new I discovered. I replaced the Ghost Walker aspect, at least I think it's called like this, so the aspect that gives you 25% additional movement speed. I replaced this aspect with Noxious Ice, and this will additionally give me 29% multiplicative damage versus frozen enemies. So this is a huge damage multiplier on our boots, and this only applies to poison damage. But since our main source of damage is the Xfal ring, this is also poison damage, so it's a very nice damage multiplier here. On the crossbow, you either want to play with Penetrating Shot or with Bursting Venoms. Actually, I think Bursting Venoms is better because we don't really care about our Penetrating Shot damage, as I mentioned. So I would put Bursting Venoms instead on the crossbow and the Penetrating Shot, Trick Shot aspect on your dagger. And then on the amulet, very important, you want +3 ranks of Frigid Finesse. This will give you 30% increased damage versus frozen enemies, so huge DPS buff. So it would be really nice if you could find an amulet with +3 ranks to Frigid Finesse. And also movement speed and total armor are very important to have it on the amulet. Then obviously the Xfal ring, our main source of damage, and this Rethink Band ring, so the Malignant ring I was talking about. I can highly recommend you to use this, because this just makes your life much more easy in the Abattoire of Zir, and it makes it's much more difficult to die this way. So yeah, this is the gear. Vampiric Powers, Prey on the Weak. Actually, I just used this for the training dummies here, but I think you want to play with Resilience, so we play with Ravenous for this huge attack speed bonus, then 2 defensive Vampiric Powers with Undying and Resilience, Domination for another huge 24% damage multiplier, and Metamorphosis, just because I am spamming and engaging fights with Shadow Step very often, and this way Metamorphosis can help me to escape a CC. So if I get CC'd by a monster, then I can use Metamorphosis to become unstoppable, since my Shadow Step will be on cooldown most of the times. So yeah, these are the Vampiric Powers. Quickly, I want to mention some highlights in the skill tree. So like I mentioned before, the Penetrating Shot is not our primary damage source. So that's why I think it's just fine to only invest 1 point into Penetrating Shot. because if we are dealing up to 17-18 million poison damage with Xfal ring, then this 200k or 700k damage of penetrating shot are not really that important. So I believe that it's not necessary to put that many points into here, and instead we can invest some points into Starter Step, for example, or also Rugged. So yeah, but it's up to you. If you think you need this damage, you can of course change something here and there, but I recommend you to only invest 1 point into penetrating shot. Rapid Fire, on the other hand, is it's very important to have maximum skill points here, because this is our main source of single target damage, and here we want to deal as much damage with Rapid Fire as possible. Then you can see I'm also playing with Subverting Dark Shroud. So I have in total I have 3 passive skills that are increasing my movement speed. I have Subverting Dark Shroud, I have 3 points into Stutter Step, and I have Haste. And this combined with movement speed on my boots and movement speed on my amulet will give me a total of 100% movement speed, so additional movement speed bonus. So we are kinda capped in this build with movement speed. Then I'm also I'm investing only 1 point into Poison Imbuement. Here you could make also an argument to invest more, because this will also increase the single target damage of Rapid Fire. So I could see a world where we just replace Stutter Step. So we take these 3 points from Stutter Step and put them into Poison Imbuement. But right now I will keep it like that and just monitor how well I can proceed in the Abattoire of Zir. Also 2 points into Alchemical Advantage to maximize our attack speed. Very nice. And 1 point into Innovation just for this little bit additional energy gain. And of course we play with Close Quarters Combat for this huge damage increase. So that was the skills and the Paragon board. I also made some major updates in my Paragon board. So this Paragon board is kind of similar to the Barbaroque Paragon board, but I have realized that I made a mistake with the new Zir glyph. So instead of putting the Zir glyph in the starting board, which was obviously a big mistake of mine 2 weeks ago, I now can recommend you to put the new Zir glyph into the Cheap Shot board. So on the Cheap Shot board you will be able to reach the most damage bonus from this glyph, and it's the best choice in my opinion for this new glyph. So that's why we replaced something here and there. Right now I'm playing with the control glyph in the starting board. Here we are not reaching the maximum amount of intelligence, but it's much more efficient to put this glyph, the control glyph, into the starting board, because we can save a lot of Paragon points this way, and it's just much more efficient. Then, like I mentioned, I would put the new Zir glyph into this Cheap Shot board here. Then we are playing with 2 additional legendary nodes. So we play with Eldritch Bounty for additional 20% poison damage. So this way we increase our poison explosion damage. And we need to play with Cunning Stratagem to reach this 900% lucky hit chance. So this way we will guarantee all of our lucky hits to proc. Then we have this Tricks of the Trade board, where we invest some points into this nice resistance and damage reduction nodes, and here we play with Diminish for further damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. We also get some armor here, and the last glyph is Exploit. So especially in this build I can imagine that the Exploit glyph can be enough in the Abattoire of Zir, because we want to deal most of our damage within the first 3 seconds, since basically all of our damage scalers and multipliers are based on mechanics like freezing or like the Godslayer Crown. So for that reason I think Exploit is also a good addition. So we make enemies vulnerable for only 3 seconds and just hope we can kill most of them in this time. But when we realize that we just need to make enemies vulnerable for a longer time, we could replace this glyph and apply vulnerability with Vampiric Powers instead. So then we would switch resilience for Prey on the Weak, for example. But that's something that we need to test in the future. So yeah, this is the Paragon board. We are capped out on resistances in this build and have a decent amount of armor in both variants. So yeah, this is the build. And as a little bonus for all of you who stayed until the end of this video, I want to present you another build. So here you can see my old Poison Rogue, which I also updated a bit for the Abattoire of Zir event. So this build is very tanky, deals a lot of damage, like you can see here in the boss fight. I was doing more than 15 million poison damage in the end, or more than 10 million. And it's just an updated version of my old Poison Rogue, and it also doesn't require any Uber uniques to work. And you are very tanky and deal a lot of DPS. So if you don't want to play this ranged rogue that I just showed you in this video, you can also just check out my latest version of this Poison Rogue, my updated version. I will link them as always in the description. So this is just an alternative that I can give you. And I think these two rogue builds are the most powerful builds right now for this Abattoire of Zir content. I think the Penetrating Shot version is a bit stronger than this Twisting Blades rogue. Twisting Blades has some other strengths, so it's, for example, much better for killing bosses, but since in the Abattoire of Zir there will be no bosses in the end, this is not that important, so that's why I believe the Penetrating Shot is just a bit more better for AoE damage, and that's why better for clearing the Abattoire of Zir. So yeah, I will link these two versions as always in the description. So here you can find my Penshot Xfal ring build and Pure Poison build. Just go to the last two versions. So I have budget version here and also an updated Uber version. So these two are my latest versions. And also here on my Penshot Xfal ring, I have this budget tank version and this budget damage version. Okay guys, I hope you learned something, and you can write me in the comments if this build works for you or not. So if you try your first runs of Abattoire of Zir, write me in the comments if it was successful or not for you. And I'd say I see you in the next video. Have a nice day guys, and bye bye.